Imagine you are stepping into a lush, tropical forest in the heart of Southeast Asia. The air is thick with humidity. The canopy above is so dense that it blurs the midday sun into a soft emerald glow. It looks like the ultimate nature documentary backdrop. It looks like paradise. You take a deep breath, expecting the scent of damp earth and blooming orchids. You wait for the screech of a macaw or the chatter of a gibbon. You wait for the buzzing of a billion cicadas, but you wait in vain, because there is nothing. Not a peep, not a rustle, not a single chirp. You are standing in what looks like a vibrant jungle, but the only thing you can hear is the sound of your own blood pumping in your ears. This is not a horror movie set. This is a real place in southern China called Xishuangbanna, and it is the site of a silent green disaster. Welcome to the green desert. To understand why the birds have stopped singing, we have to look closer at the trees themselves. Look at the trunks. They are all the same size. They are perfectly spaced, like soldiers on parade. They all have the same grayish bark. And if you look closely, you will see a spiral scar carved into the side of every single one of them. These are not wild jungle trees. These are rubber trees, Hevea brasiliensis. Originally from the Amazon rainforest, these trees have been kidnapped, cloned, and deployed across millions of hectares of what used to be the most biodiverse land on Earth. I once spoke to a local driver who grew up near the village of Longyinle. He remembered his childhood being loud. He told me that 40 years ago, you could not sleep because the jungle was so noisy. There were tigers. There were bears. There were so many birds that the sky felt crowded. Today, he calls these rubber plantations the quietest places on Earth. He says even the insects have moved out because there is nothing left for them to eat. The jungle has been replaced by a factory that happens to be painted green. Why did we do this? Why did we trade the most vibrant ecosystem on the planet for a silent rows of clones? The answer is simple and terrifying. Without these trees, your modern life would literally fall apart in about 48 hours. Think about your day. You woke up on a mattress that likely contains latex. You put on sneakers with rubber soles. You hopped in your car, which has 4 massive rubber tires and hundreds of small rubber gaskets and hoses under the hood. You used a smartphone that required rubber seals during its manufacturing process. Rubber is the hidden blood of industrial civilization. It is the only material that is both incredibly elastic and remarkably durable under extreme heat and pressure. We have tried to make synthetic rubber from petroleum, and we are pretty good at it. But for high-performance needs, forget about it. A jumbo jet landing on a runway puts so much stress on its tires that synthetic rubber would simply melt or shatter. Every airplane tire on the planet is made from natural rubber tapped from a tree. No rubber, no flight. No rubber, no global trade. No rubber, no internet. Because the world is so hungry for rubber, we have turned huge swaths of the tropics into a massive one-crop experiment. We call this monoculture. In Xishuangbanna, the rubber boom started a few decades ago. It promised wealth to the local farmers, and for a while, it delivered. People moved out of bamboo huts and into concrete houses. They bought cars and televisions. But the earth has a funny way of sending a bill for that kind of progress. These rubber trees are biological vacuum cleaners. They are incredibly thirsty. In a natural rainforest, different plants occupy different levels. You have the giants that touch the clouds, the medium trees, the shrubs, and the moss. This complex layers trap moisture and create their own microclimate. But in a rubber plantation, it is just one species from top to bottom. These trees suck up groundwater so fast that the local wells have started running dry. In some parts of Yunnan province, the famous morning mist that used to nourish the mountain tea plants has simply disappeared. The humidity is gone. The soil is turning to dust. The forest looks green, but internally, it is parched. And here is where the suspense turns into a legitimate thriller, because every single rubber tree in Asia is basically a twin. Back in the late 1800s, a British man named Henry Wickham smuggled 70,000 rubber seeds out of Brazil. He brought them to London, grew them in a greenhouse, and then shipped the survivors to Southeast Asia. Almost every rubber tree in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and China today is a descendant of those few original seeds. They are genetically nearly identical. This is great for business because every tree produces the exact same high-quality latex at the same time. But it is an absolute nightmare for security. Why? Because of something called South American leaf blight. In its home in the Amazon, the rubber tree lives in a balanced ecosystem. It grows far apart from its neighbors, which prevents diseases from spreading. But there is a fungus there, a tiny invisible killer that loves to eat rubber leaves. It is called Parnotai el Lau Lai. In Brazil, this fungus is a natural part of the cycle. But when you put millions of identical trees right next to each other, this fungus turns into a biological weapon of mass destruction. Just ask Henry Ford. Yes, the Ford Motor Company guy. In the 1920s, Ford was tired of the British and Dutch controlling the rubber supply in Asia. He wanted his own source for his Model T tires. So, he bought a giant chunk of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil and tried to build a Midwestern American town in the middle of the jungle. He called it Fordlandia. He cleared the jungle and planted millions of rubber trees side by side, just like we do today in China and Thailand. He ignored the local wisdom. He ignored the scientists. And the fungus thanked him for it. The South American leaf blight hit Fordlandia, like a plague. Because the trees were so close together, the spores could jump from one leaf to the next with ease. Within a few years, millions of dollars were gone. The trees were skeletal sticks. And Fordlandia became a ghost town. Today, it is a ruin swallowed by the jungle, a monument to human hubris. The scary part is that this fungus has stayed in South America. For now, experts call it the Ebola of the plant world. If a single traveler from Brazil gets a few spores on their hiking boots and flies to Bangkok or Kunming, and then walks through a rubber plantation, the entire global economy could collapse. Because Asian rubber trees have no natural resistance to this fungus, we are talking about the potential for a 90% wipeout of the world's natural rubber supply in less than a decade. No tires for your car, no landing gear for planes, no seals for medical equipment. Total, silent chaos. The rubber industry knows this. They are terrified of it. They have strict quarantine rules, and they are desperately trying to breed resistant trees, but it is a race against time. And meanwhile, the silence in the forests of Xishuangbanna grows deeper. We have created these green deserts because they are efficient. We like things that are uniform. We like things that are predictable, but nature hates uniformity. Nature thrives on chaos and diversity. When we remove the birds, the insects, and the wild diversity of the jungle, we are not just making a boring forest. We are making a fragile one. We are pulling out the threads of a giant safety net, one by one, until the whole thing is ready to tear. So the next time you see a picture of a beautiful, endless green forest from a drone, don't just look at the color. Ask yourself, can you hear the birds? Because if the forest is quiet, it means the ecosystem is on life support. It means we are looking at a factory that is one fungal spore away from bankruptcy. We live in a world where our most advanced technologies rely on the sap of a cloned tree in a silent forest. We have traded the roar of the tiger for the squeak of a rubber sole. It is a trade we made without really thinking about the cost. Now, as the wells go dry and the silence spreads, we have to wonder, what happens when the green desert finally stops giving us what we need? The disaster of the rubber forest is not just about the birds that left. It is about a world that has become too efficient for its own good. It is a warning whispered in a place where no one is left to sing. We should probably start listening before the silence spreads to our own backyards. It is ironic, isn't it? We spent centuries trying to tame the wild, trying to bring order to the jungle. We finally did it. We turned the wild, chaotic Amazonian spirit into a neat, rows and columns grid of productivity. And in doing so, we created something much more frightening than a jungle full of predators. We created a void. In the 19th century, the rubber boom was called the Black Gold Fever. People were killed for it. Empires were built on it. Now, it is the silent green fever. It is less violent, perhaps, on the surface. There are no colonial wars being fought in the rubber groves of China today. But the ecological violence is profound. When the groundwater disappears, the local people cannot just buy more rubber to drink. When the soil becomes acidic from the lack of leaf litter, the land becomes a graveyard for any other plant that tries to grow. The people of Xishuangbanna are starting to realize that you cannot eat rubber. You can sell it, yes. You can buy a shiny new truck with the profits. But that truck needs water to keep its radiator cool, and it needs a world that is not currently collapsing under the weight of its own consumption. There is a small movement now to try and restore some balance. Some farmers are starting to plant cacao or coffee or native hardwoods in between the rubber trees. They are trying to invite the birds back. They are trying to turn the green desert back into a living forest. But it is slow work. It is much harder to build an ecosystem than it is to clear-cut one. It is much harder to invite the spirits back once you have chased them away with the sound of a chainsaw and the smell of industrial chemicals. If you ever find yourself in southern China, take a drive out of the city and find one of these plantations. Step out of the car. Walk 20 meters into the rows of gray trunks. Stop. Close your eyes. Listen. In a healthy forest, the sound is a physical wall. It is a vibrating, pulsing energy. But in the rubber grove, the silence is heavy. It feels unnatural. It feels like the forest is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, waiting for the leaf blight to arrive, waiting for the water to run out, or perhaps just waiting for us to realize that we cannot survive in a world where the only things left alive are the things we can sell. The birds have already left. They were the smart ones. They saw the green desert coming, and they flew to find a place that still had a soul. The question is, where do we go? We can't fly away from the global supply chain. We can't fly away from our dependence on this one. Fragile, cloned tree. We are stuck in the quiet forest with our rubber tires and our plastic dreams, hoping that the wind doesn't carry a spore from across the ocean. It is a high-stakes game of ecological roulette, and right now, the wheel is spinning, the silence is loud, and the trees are standing perfectly still, waiting for the end of the world to come on a light breeze. We need to remember that the most valuable thing a forest gives us is not the rubber for our tires or the timber for our floors. It is the noise. It is the messy, loud, complicated, and utterly unprofitable chaos of life. Because without that noise, we are just standing in a very large, very green, very quiet tomb. So listen to the silence. It is telling us everything we need to know. It is telling us that a forest without birds is not a forest at all. It is just a countdown, and the clock is ticking louder than we care to admit. The next time you see your car tires, or your yoga mat, or the seal on your refrigerator, think of the silent forests of Xishuangbanna. Think of the missing birds. And think about how lucky we are that, for today at least, the world is still holding together by a very thin, very elastic, and very vulnerable piece of rubber. The silence is a warning. Let's hope we are smart enough to hear it before the quiet becomes permanent.